Rich Couch. I am your host, Deborah, if this is your first time here. And I'm so glad to have a friend with me on the couch. Okay. Not physically like here, because she is international. She is overseas. But I'm going to go ahead and let her introduce herself. And we're going to jump right into our rich conversation. Tell me your name.
Hi guys, my name is Cindy, and yeah, so I'm actually glad to be here and just share some of my experience with you guys. So yeah.
Awesome. And Cindy, tell them where you, Cindy made a big leap a year ago, right? Has it been a year?
Yes, it has been a year. Actually, this month on the 14th was a year.
Wow. Okay, so tell them, where did you go?
So on the 14th, I decided to pursue a master's degree in social work in London. So I flew over here last year and next year's graduation, so I can't wait.
Yes, so I'm so excited. Cindy, first of all, she just knew this was her dream and she was like, I'm going to pursue it. I'm going after it. So she packed her bags, moved to London. So where did we meet? We met at work, right? We met at work. Yeah, we worked together for like 2 years. Worked together for 2 years. And in those 2 years, we just started talking, you know how coworkers do, having our water cooler conversations. And like I said in some previous videos, this is PCOS Awareness Month. September is PCOS Awareness Month in the US, where I live. So I've been sharing my story on the Rich Couch, but I also wanted to bring some friends to share their stories. So over the course of time of working together, we both learned, wait a minute, we both have PCOS. So I wanted to invite Cindy as one of my girlfriends on here just to talk about her story and her journey with PCOS and what she's doing now, life after diagnosis, to take care of herself and, what she would encourage other young women to do who have found out that they have been diagnosed. So Cindy, let's just jump right into it. So tell us, when did you get diagnosed?
I was formally diagnosed in 2007. I was around eighth grade year, going into ninth grade. So I was diagnosed pretty early.
Wow, yeah, that is early.
Yeah, so I was diagnosed pretty early. So I've literally lived with PCOS majority of my life. I don't know anything different from having PCOS. So it's like one of those things where you're like, okay, so what do I need to do? And I think the lack of knowledge from a lot of people really hindered my growth in a sense.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of fear behind it. There's a lot of stigma behind it. And the first things doctors usually tell you is, you might not be able to have kids. And you're like,
Oh my gosh. And they tell you that when you're in middle school?
Yeah, they tell you, like, I remember having, like, the doctor having a conversation with my mother and saying, she may not have children, but we're trying to stop that. We're trying to prevent that at an earlier age. So they had put me on birth control from 8th grade on.
Wow. Yeah. That is, oh my gosh. And I remember because one of the symptoms, if this is your first time watching my PCO awareness series, one of the symptoms of PCOS is having an irregular menstrual, right? And I remember my doctor giving my mom that as an option, and she was like, no, I really want her body to try to, regulate itself. So even at an early age, how old were you? 14?
I was 14, like around 13, 14. So my body still, at that age, your body's still really learning and growing
and developing.
So but it was kind of like, this is what she has, this is why she's having irregular menstrual cycles, we're going to put her on this, and that's it. And you kind of, at that age, you kind of feel like there's something wrong with you, you know, like you're not a normal child like everyone else. Everyone's out there playing and, you know, doing
Yeah,
what
you're
they
not a
need to
normal
do.
like teenager.
Exactly. You're like, oh yeah, I'm on birth control. And people are like, oh, what's,
What?
and you're like, no, that it's just for this. And so you have that stigma that's attached to that as well.
Right.
So yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So one thing I wanted to ask you was, um, when your doctor, you know, confirmed that you had PCOS, did they run like blood tests or like how did they confirm that?
Well, I feel like I got an informal confirmation at first. It was just based on the symptoms that I had. So, of
Okay.
course, some of the symptoms, you know, like you know, is the excess hair growth on your face,
Mm-hmm.
irregular menstrual cycles, and so it was like in weight gain. So it was like those simple symptoms. They were like, they're like, okay, we kind of think that she has PCOS, but we're not really sure. But it wasn't until I was 18 that I
Mm-hmm.
had gotten like blood work done and they officially had confirmed like, no, we're pretty sure that she has PCOS. And of course, you know, you go through the test, they're checking your ovaries and seeing how that's developing. And they're telling you, well, your weight gain is not really helping because
Mm-hmm.
then the more weight you gain, the bigger they are. And
Mm-hmm.
so a lot of the information was being bombarded at all at once. You kind of just feel like you're being all this information is
It's
being
information
processed.
overload.
It
It
is. So
was, yeah. I can relate to
you're
that.
like
It was
you're kind of
like,
like,
okay,
okay, oh, all right.
okay, all right. What do I do about this?
Oh, what am I supposed to do?
Right, right.
Yeah.
And so did so fast forward, so from 14 when you got to 18 and you did do the blood work and all that, did they give you any instructions, okay, what to do next, how to, you know,
No,
navigate life, any
no,
changes for health or anything like that?
no. I think you just kind of just there's no cure. Here's some birth control. Hopefully you can lose some weight, and that's about it. And you kind of
Wow.
just and it's so sad because at that age you're like, okay, well, of course I was at 18. I was thinking about, okay, well, I want to have children. I want to have a family. I was just thinking about, school, being normal, or somewhat normal, whatever
Yeah,
normal is,
right.
and just kind of living life. And so
Yeah,
there was a period of time where I stopped taking my birth control because I wanted my body to just start to regulate itself, but
yeah,
it just never did. So
yeah,
it was the point where I was like, it's either I have a regular menstrual cycle and I know I'm ovulating monthly, or I'm not and I'm just going months without having it and just being like, whatever happens happens. But
yeah,
there's no information that's like, oh well, this is what could happen in the future, or these are your options in the future, or when
yeah,
that time comes, this is what you can do. But it wasn't until as I gotten older and me personally seeking information myself and
yeah.
really looking for information and asking people that I was able to like, okay, well, I may not be able to have children. It may be harder for me,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not inevitable. And my body will start to regulate itself as the more weight I lose, it will start to regulate itself. But it's not going to be perfect. It's
Right,
not. They'll tell you
right,
not a symptom, but like a condition that's treatable. So it's something
right.
that you're going to live with for the rest of your life. And I'm like, okay, well, I have to come to terms with that. So what can I do now as I get older to better my body and to help my body to able to regulate itself and do what it needs to do by
Right.
itself, really.
So, okay, great. I love that. And before you go into that, I
Mm,
really do encourage women,
mm,
encourage young women to become your own advocate. Become your own advocate.
yes,
Even if your doctor or gynecologist did not give you those next steps, here's what
mm,
you can do to take care of yourself. Start researching. Start asking questions. Remember, we started that conversation
yeah,
even at work. And from there, researching, reading, and
mm,
when you go back to your doctor or go back to a new doctor, you start asking, hey, research that I've seen says this about this kind of medication or
mm,
this about this kind of, eating plan? Can you give me some feedback? What have you seen? What have you heard?
Yeah.
It's really important for women to become their biggest advocates.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, with that being said, so after you started doing your research, what have you been doing life after your diagnosis?
Life has been interesting.
Yeah,
Um,
because I'll be following you on Instagram. I'm like, get
it's
it,
interesting.
Cindy.
It's interesting. That's all I have to say.
I
But what
see
I
you
would
working out,
say,
girl.
but what I would say is, like you said, do your own research.
Yes.
Don't just take the information that you're given at face value, because a lot of people will tell you. I remember even like when the first doctor told me you may never have children, and I know a lot of women. I've met people with PCOS who have children, multiple
Same.
children. Like you're
Same.
like, oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
But do your research, and also I've learned that do what works for your body. If
Yeah.
you're researching and they're saying this food can be a flare up, or this can be, can help alleviate some of the symptoms, do a little bit more research on that.
Yeah.
So I found that like working out and like incorporating more vegetables, incorporating more fruits, but not too much fruit, because some women are insulin resistant, and
Yes, that's
so
right. And the
not
sugar in the
all
fruit.
that sugar intake. So
Mm-hmm.
like having that equal balance. No one's telling, and I always tell people, like, no one's telling you to just cut off bad foods. Like don't eat bad foods, they're not good for you. But do what works for your body.
Yeah.
If 6 days out of the week you're eating healthy foods and vegetables, and including water, really watching your weight, even if it is going outside for 30 minutes, having a healthy walk, just getting that blood flow. And on,
Yeah.
on a one day you eat junk food, is not going to kill you. You know what I mean? But it's
Right.
just to know to stay consistent with it, and you will see results. But those results are not going to come tomorrow. They're not going to come in 2 days.
Right.
Even though
It's
we
true.
work out one day
It
and we
takes
walk
time. It
in the
takes
mirror, we're like,
time.
ooh, exactly. It does. It takes time. So patience is key. Patience is
Ooh, that patience.
key. It is. It is.
How, if you don't mind sharing with us, like, what are some results that you've seen from, like you said, incorporating more vegetables, doing 30 minutes of working out? What have you seen change?
I've realized that I've had more energy.
Mm-hmm.
I've had more energy to really go throughout the day
Yeah.
on a more positive note. And I've also seen changes in my body.
Yeah.
Like my body's starting to slim down more. I'm
Mm-hmm.
starting to see me fit in clothes differently. So it boosts when you're doing those things. Yes, you're helping your body outward, but you're
Yeah.
also helping your mentality. It gives you that boost of like
Here.
confidence. It does. And you're like,
Yep.
wow, I look good in these jeans. I look
Yes,
good.
sir.
I'm
You
like,
can't
oh,
tell me nothing.
this outfit look good. And so you have it changes you. But I always tell people, even I tell my friends this also, you don't do it for other people. You
Yeah.
do it for you. You do it to make yourself feel good. Because at the end of
Yeah.
the day, I'm not living in someone else. I'm not living in Deborah's body. I'm not living in anybody else's body. I'm living in
It's
my
true.
body.
I'm living in my
And
body.
that's
That's a really good point you made, because you can be motivated, especially as a young woman, and so
mm,
influenced by what other people say, friends, family, whoever. And it's like, no, I'm doing this for me. Like, I want to feel good. I want to feel good in my body. I want to look good in the clothes that I wear. Like, God ain't made no mistake with me. I'm cute.
he sure
What?
didn't. He sure didn't. He sure did not. He didn't.
The
And
cutest
just because you have,
thing.
exactly, and just because you're diagnosed with this, it doesn't mean the end all.
Yes.
You
Oh
know?
my God. I post
It,
that
it,
on my on the Rich Couch Instagram page. Like,
yeah,
this is not the
it
end for
doesn't
you.
mean it's
PCOS
not the end
is
for
not
you.
the end.
There's women out here who are living their best lives with PCOS,
Best. The
and
best.
I refuse to be. And yes, you do have moments. I'm not saying we're not going to have moments of, discouragement, and you're not going to have moments where you're like, okay, well, I wish I stopped eating junk food for a week and lost 15 pounds like some of these people out here in these streets. But that's not how it works. Unfortunately,
Right.
you're just going to have to work a little harder
Yep.
and push yourself a little more. But when you get to that result that you want to get to, it's all worth it in the end. It may not be perfect. Your journey may not be up a hill. It may be to the left, to the right, down the hill, through some woods, through some bushes. But eventually, through that persistence and that consistency, you'll get to the other side. And
Right.
a whole, I always tell people it's not even like a weight loss journey. It's a lifestyle change because it's not
Yeah.
temporary. It's
Oh my
on.
goodness. Yes, that's rich. That's rich. That's a rich reminder. It's a lifestyle change.
Yeah, it is.
It's a lifestyle change. Yeah. So, what have you been doing to encourage yourself
Mm.
when you say you have to work a little harder and you have to be a little bit more patient? Like how do you do that for you?
I think for me, I tell myself that, but I also get to the point where I'm like, I know it's going to be hard, but it's not inevitable. I know I'm going to eventually, I have to eventually get to that point. I, with me not doing it, I'm not going to get to that point. If I'm not going to push myself, if I'm not going to do, I'm not going to be proactive with what I'm doing, of course, I'm not going to get to that end goal. But yes, there are days where I'm like, you know what? All I want to do is eat me a cheeseburger and not
Girl,
go to the gym
it's
or not
fries.
work out and just not do nothing. But I have to because I'm like, I have a goal that I want to reach.
Yeah.
And this goal may not be to lose 100 pounds or whatever. It may be, and I always tell people to start small. It may be you lose 5 pounds in
Yes.
this month. I'm going to lose 5 pounds
Oh, that's
this month.
so good. Like it's true. Like starting small with your goals, because I'm like a overachiever. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna lose 20 pounds in the next 2 months. And for someone else, it could work, but
Mm-hmm.
realistically, this thing is stubborn
Yeah.
and it's like you said, starting off with, you know, some some smart goals.
Small goals.
It's
Mm-hmm.
practical, and
Yeah.
5 pounds is a good start, and then you
Mm-hmm.
can do 10,
You
and then you
increase,
can
and you increase it
15.
because you don't want to have you don't want to overshadow your goal and say I want to lose 20 pounds in 2 months, and if you get after those 2 months you only lose 10. What
Right,
happened? Like what
right.
happened? And so then a lot of the times you start to backtrack. Okay, well I couldn't do 20 pounds, or clearly I'm not meant for this. But that's not what that means. It just
That's not what
you
it
maybe
means.
are there, but that does not mean you still lost 10 pounds, which is 10
Yes,
pounds. You look at 10 pounds, 10 pounds is a lot,
celebrate those
right?
10 pounds. It's true,
It's a
girl.
lot.
That is so good. That's a rich nugget. It's a rich nugget. Celebrate those 10 pounds. Celebrate 5 pounds.
Yeah.
Girl, I'm the one that when I see 2 pounds down on the scale, I'm
Oh,
yes, I'm you. I can't celebrate too much though. You see, I mess around. I mess
and then
around and be
the
like, I'm
next
gonna have a
day,
cheat meal. It's 2 cheat meals. No, no, no. Stay focused. And I think you set a goal earlier. That's another rich nugget is stay focused on your goals. Don't forget
yeah,
your goals. Like you
yeah,
said, if your goal is 20 pounds and you lost 10, keep going. Keep
celebrate
going.
that. Yeah,
Celebrate the
keep
10,
going, keep
but
going.
keep going.
Yeah, never, don't stop because you didn't reach that. At least you lost. It's one of those things where like I'm trying to lose 20 pounds. I lost 5. At least I didn't gain 20, right?
Hey,
If I didn't gain 10, I lost
hey.
5. That's 5 less than I was yesterday, or 5 less than I was last week.
Right.
It's like it may be baby steps. And I always tell even my friends now, like when we talk about our lifestyle changes, we're like, when you look at a baby doesn't just come out of the womb and start running out the door. They're gradually learning to use their motor skills. They're gradually learning to use those skills, and they crawl, then to start to walk, then to start to run. But I think a lot of the times when you're looking at people who are diagnosed with anything, we kind of want that like end result. We're like, oh, I'm going to lose those 50 pounds. It's
Immediately.
easy.
Immediately.
And that doesn't work that way. And
It
it,
doesn't.
unfortunately,
We wish it would, but just life really doesn't work that way.
it doesn't work that way, unfortunately.
So, Cindy, before we leave, because I'm all about having rich conversations, enriching relationships, and enriching lives. So, what is a rich encouragement you would give to a young woman who has been recently diagnosed with PCOS?
What I would say is the fear is real and it's understandable. To have that fear of the unknown and be given information and have that information overload, it's scary. But to know that with your consistency and you doing your own research and you doing what works for your body and you knowing how your body works, whether you're insulin resistant or you can't eat as many carbs or you can't eat as much sugar or anything, knowing what works for you will ultimately shift that thought process. And you'll say, you know what? I know what works for me. I'm going to start doing what works for me. What works for someone else may not work for me. Because no two people with PCOS are the same. Like you're complete opposites. And so what may work for Deborah, it may not work for me. Or you may take nuggets from each other and say, oh, I didn't think I could use that, or I didn't think I could take this or that. You can take information from other people and try them. There's nothing wrong with trying it, right? But realizing that like you are, ultimately, this is one body. You have one body. Unfortunately, we're not given 2, 3. Unfortunately, we only have one. And knowing what works for you and embracing the journey. Knowing the journey may not be easy, but the journey will come with a lot of crying. You cry sometimes, or you'll get to the point where you're like, I don't know if I can do it. But to know that you set your goals for yourself, not to achieve them, but to ultimately get that feeling of, okay, I'm heading towards the right direction. It may not be perfect. It may not be what's good for someone else, but it's good for me. And that's all that really matters, really. So, yeah.
That is so good. And I think that's a rich nugget. My journey is going to look a little different from the girl next door, or my journey is going to look different from Cindy's, but my journey is still my journey. I got to embrace it. I got to cry. Girl, make time for you to cry.
Cry, just let it out.
Listen, I like a good cry. I'd be like, ooh, I needed that. Like, seriously, like, that's good. Make time for yourself to cry. Tears are healing. Tears are releasing those emotions. So thank you so much for sharing that, Cindy. I hope if you are watching this, you are a young woman, you recently got diagnosed with PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome. I hope this was an enriching conversation for you to tune into. Here on The Rich Couch, we're all about enriching conversations, enriching relationships, and enriching lives. So thank you, Cindy, all the way from London. Joined us today. Thank you so much. And we'll catch you later on The Rich Couch. Bye, guys. Thank you.